meeting, a special general meeting, where there was two choices. Choice number one, do you want to continue to give money to the Scottish Socialist Party and possibly other independents? Or choice number two, you don't. Knowing that if you vote for number one, we'll be expelled from Labour. And the 80 delegates that are from every region voted to continue to give money to the Socialists, so we were expelled from the Labour Party. So the founding members of the Labour Party were then expelled from it. And then a couple of years ago, under Jeremy Corbyn, many people wanted to, in the union, wanted to join Labour to support Jeremy Corbyn, because he was a good person. But we had to have another special general meeting. I was against it myself, because although Jeremy Corbyn was good and I supported him, at the top of the machinery of the party was bureaucrats that were right-wing, and they control where the money goes. You can give £1 million to Labour, and they can control it. Or you can give money to Jeremy Corbyn, money to other socialists, money to the Green Party, money to independents. So we voted again, and we voted to remain outside of Labour. So that's where we are in our union, affiliated to like the Social Democrats or nothing like that. We can give money to whoever we want. Personally, I think that's the best way. And many unions, most Democrats have too much unions. I don't think that's a good thing. If the Social Democrats are fighting for us, then that's good. Our motto is we support those people that support us. And if that's an independent or places, I've actually forgot most of them today. And I've been in workplaces. It's been very good, so I'd like to thank the people that organised it and the people that got the money to bring us through. So that was mainly, I know, the union is Triaf. I'd like to thank the Triaf Union in the various places, and the Red Green Alliance also, who supported us in each place. I know the agreement's now up. And every place that I've been to this week, I've spoke to shop stewards, I've spoke to people in the union, and 95% of them have told me the same thing. Yeah. That's what they want. So I don't know how that's going to go, but if it's a no vote, I don't know exactly. If it ends up being strike in Denmark, I will come back and I'll see Kim in the rail union and stand on the picket line with them, and also the other people I've met. So good luck with that. And then of course also the reason our French comrades have only just come now, and the RMT and the CGT union are very close. We do lots of stuff together. But they've been in France because not only on picket line, but hopefully starting the revolution. So I'd like to say, most of all, good luck to our comrades in France when they return. There's big demonstrations on Tuesday, big strikes, and hopefully, the French working class can basically take us to where we should be and win those fights. So, thank you.
It was very good, but you take all the speeches, so I have talked with Andy and he waited a little. Okay. So we go to the French. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Axel. I do speak Swedish, but I'm not sure everybody will get that. So I'll translate from when she speaks French to English directly. Vas-y. No.
Yeah.
Vas-y.
Bonjour à tous.
Oh, hello everybody.
Je m'appelle Suzy, j'ai 27 ans, je suis conductrice de train à Versailles.
Her name is Suzy, she's 27 years old and she's a train driver in the city of Versailles.
Je suis membre du bureau de la CGT des cheminots de Versailles.
She's a member of the local executive of the CGT Railway Workers Union in the city of Versailles.
Nous sommes actuellement en grève illimitée depuis environ 3 semaines.
We've now been on an unlimited strike for almost 3 weeks now.
Contre le projet qui nous forcerait à travailler 2 ans de plus minimum.
Against this planned pension attack on our pensions, where the government is trying to force us to work 2 additional years before we retire.
Et qui nous ferait augmenter les années de cotisation et qui nous ferait baisser le montant des pensions.
And that would also lead to an increased numbers of years we would need to work before we get a full pension, and that would also lead to decreased amounts in terms of pensions.
Nous sommes fiers de ce mouvement parce qu'il est fort chez les cheminots, mais aussi dans d'autres domaines.
We are proud of this strike because it's not only strong in the railway, but it's also strong in several different industries.
Les éboueurs,
The garbage disposal workers,
les raffineries,
those who work in the oil refineries,
les ports,
the dock workers,
dans l'énergie
in the energy plant workers, the nuclear plant workers,
et dans plein d'autres usines.
and in several factories all across the country.
La grève est très populaire.
And the strike is extremely popular.
Le gouvernement est minoritaire.
And the government is represents a very tiny minority in society.
Il y a environ 95% des travailleurs qui sont contre cette réforme.
When you look at the opinion polls amongst workers, 95% of them are opposed to this attack.
C'est pour cela que le gouvernement nous impose le projet de loi sans le faire voter.
So that is also why the government is ramming through this proposed law through Parliament without even having a vote.
Je pense que le gouvernement s'est fait dépasser. Il ne pensait pas que la réaction serait aussi forte.
But the government has been in many aspects caught by surprise, because it didn't expect this type of reaction, this type of uncontrollable reaction.
Les citoyens sont très énervés. Depuis jeudi dernier, tous les soirs, les grandes villes brûlent.
Because the general population is really pissed, especially since last Thursday, because that's when they took the decision to force through the decision without having a vote in Parliament, because they would lose the vote. So basically, in all the cities, the major cities in France have been burning basically since Thursday evening, every night.
Du coup, il y a une partie des personnes qui faisaient partie des Gilets jaunes en 2019, mais aussi nous avons beaucoup de personnes en grève pour bloquer l'économie.
So part of those who recognized themselves in the Yellow Vest movement in 2018, we are now finding them again in the demonstrations, combined with the strikes this time.
C'est compliqué parce qu'il y a beaucoup de violences policières.
And the situation is very complicated because the police violence is extremely intense. It's getting really violent.
Certains ont peur d'aller en manifestation parce qu'on en a qui perdent des bras, des yeux.
Because some are scared. It's normal to take to the streets in these circumstances because we have friends, we have comrades who are losing eyes, limbs.
Mais on arrive quand même à être déterminés et à continuer la lutte.
But we are determined to pursue the struggle.
Pour revenir aux cheminots, tous les jours on bloque.
And to narrow it down, as far as railway workers, every day when we go on strike, we block and we organize blockades of our workplaces.
Les routes.
We block the roads, the highways, the rail tracks.
Les dépôts de bus.
The bus depots as well.
Et pour que ce mouvement persiste, on fait tous les jours des assemblées générales pour voter si on veut continuer ou arrêter.
And in order to make this movement as democratic and lively as possible and to make sure as many people participate in it, we organize every day, except the weekends, that's why we're here now. But every day we organize a general assembly where all strikers, be it a member of the union or not, they vote on whether to continue or end the strike. And we hold a vote every day.
Après cela, nous allons manifester tous ensemble.
And once that vote is held and the strike has voted to pursue, then we pursue the actions we've decided. We go to the demonstrations.
Pour nous, c'est la clé. C'est à la base, c'est les ouvriers qui doivent décider et pas les patrons.
And for us, that's the essence of what we think trade unions should be. That the rank and file must decide and take control over their own struggle.
Après, ce qui est compliqué, c'est que quand on est en grève, nous n'avons pas d'argent. Donc, certains ont du mal à se mettre dans le mouvement.
But what is complicated, of course, is that when you're on strike, you walk and you continue without pay. So at one point, you will be facing the issue of starvation.
Mais pour pouvoir continuer, nous avons créé une caisse de grève de solidarité pour que certains nous soutiennent.
But that is why also we locally, everywhere, we have set up local strike funds to manage to overcome these difficulties.
Et nous sommes beaucoup touchés par l'aide qui nous est apportée.
And we are very moved and honored of all the help and the funds that we have received.
car celle-ci elle est internationale. Nous avons les Italiens, les Grecs,
because even we have received funds internationally from Greek comrades, from Italian comrades,
Portugal,
from
Belgique
Portugal, Belgium,
et plein d'autres
and many other countries across the world.
qui sont très attentifs à notre mouvement.
And that we know that are very aware and follow closely the developments of our struggle.
Nous avons aussi des paysans de notre pays
And we have farmers from in our own country
qui sont venus jusqu'à Versailles nous ramener 2 tonnes de nourriture pour nourrir tous les grévistes.
that came up from the countryside. Sometimes it was almost 1,000 kilometers away from her. They went with their trucks and came all the way up to Versailles and came with 2 tons of food so that we could feed our families.
Nous voulons gagner pour nos conditions, mais aussi pour celles de nos enfants, mais aussi parce qu'on sait que l'Europe nous regarde.
Because we want to win, of course, for our sake. We want to win for the sake of our children, for the coming generations. But we also feel in this fight, we might even win for the rest of European workers. Because if we win, this will be an example.
Je pense qu'il est intéressant que vous posiez cette question, comment vous pouvez faire bouger les lignes.
So what we are hoping also when we meet our friends and comrades all across the world is discuss how can we in all our countries also organize these type of things. What type of questions should we be asking in our workplaces? How should we organize together?
Et pour conclure, je voulais vous remercier de votre invitation et d'être venus si nombreux nous écouter et partager.
And I would also like to close my part of the intervention by thanking you for having come so many of you to listen to us and sharing with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So my name is Axel. I'm a train driver as well in France, in Trappes, in a city in the southwestern suburbs of Paris. And we're actually neighbors in terms of train yards with Versailles. So we're closely both like organizationally and geographically. And I won't repeat what she said because she said it very well. I'm going to talk about the perspectives of the movement. Because now as she mentioned, we've already been through 3 weeks of strikes. So the situation is getting very tense now in the country. Because the government knows that it has to crush the movement if it wants to survive the movement. So how can it crush the movement? Well, the first, most obvious answer is just violence. So we have, it's not theoretical. I mean, last night, that's why we are often on the phone every day. We hear and we know these people. We just found out, okay, one guy of our union just went to prison. Yesterday, the comrade who works in the maintenance of the high speed trains just lost an eye yesterday. The day before yesterday in the demonstration, he was shot with grenades. Police used pellet grenades that they used to disperse the demonstrations. So of course, the government is using sheer violence to just break the will. And the other part is they're using the pretext of for example, the garbage workers in Paris are on massive strike. So depending on the area in Paris, you literally probably seen the pictures on the media with a huge amount of garbage that just piles up, including in front of the Élysée Palace, actually, where Macron is, but all across Paris. And they're saying this is becoming a national health crisis. So they're issuing decrees forcing workers back to work. And it's also a very violent way because it means that police officers are looking you up, come to your home in front of your family and say you have to go back to work like this, or we'll send you to prison for 6 months and we'll have to pay a 10,000 euro fine. So this is just to illustrate that the things is getting very tense. So that is also why the reaction you see, because people might be wondering why are they burning public institutions. It's a reaction against that violence first and foremost. It's a reaction to institutional violence that is being produced now, even though none, of course, we're not pyromans. I mean, not particularly violent. I mean, nobody really enjoys this, but one has to understand that this is a reaction against a much higher form of violence that sometimes edges close to despair and anger. And so the only answer we can have as a trade union now is that when they're trying to break down the strikes, well, we have to, of course, defend the workers who are being forced back to work, which means like physically confronting the police in front of the workplace to prevent them from forcing them back to work. But the best answer is to widen the strikes. And because every time they try to force back one worker to strike, we must manage to make another worker or other workers go back to join the strike. And what gives us hope, we don't know yet because social movements are so unpredictable. But what gives us hope is that last Thursday, for the first time we saw in the demonstrations, significant amount of high school students and university students who blocked their high schools or the universities, and they were present in significant numbers in the demonstrations, which might indicate that movement is starting to take root within the organized youth, and which will give an influx of new people joining the demonstration and the battle, which might give all those who have been striking for so long now and who might get starting to feeling turned down a new energy to continue the strike. At least that's what we are gonna. That's the strategy we're going to build on, and that is why we're calling for this massive demonstration on next Tuesday, so knowing that the last one was on Thursday. So it's a very short period, but we have to do that to keep the rhythm and maintain the momentum on our side. So we never know, because we usually sometimes laugh about this in the General Assemblies every day. We say, yeah, this is a decisive day, decisive week, but we never know when it's going to be decisive, because every day is important in the end. So now we know we're going to say the decisive step is going to be next Tuesday, and then we have to manage to take as many people out in the demonstration next Tuesday, and then we're going to have a new objective that follows suit very quickly. But we do know that the government will have a serious problem if the strikes, the demonstrations, even though they can fluctuate, sometimes it can be very big, sometimes the next time it'd be a bit smaller, that's normal. But if the demonstrations, the strikes, and even these riots actually continue in that shape for the coming weeks, despite the fact that the government keeps saying the law has been adopted, I mean, go back now, you can't do anything about it, the political situation is going to shift from a social crisis to a social and political crisis. And if that happens, then we know, because it has happened before, then it will be the employers who will order the government to back down, because they say we're going to lose, we'd rather lose the pension reform than losing control over our entire society. I don't know if we will reach that point, but we are trying to reach that point, and they, of course, are trying to do everything to not reach that point. So that's the tipping point of the balance next week, to see what direction it will go. Will they manage to basically thin out the demonstrations, like use enough violence to just break the fighting spirit, or will we manage to survive next week? And in that case, then the government will have a serious problem. But we are not foreseers. We cannot foresee. We have a strategy, and we try to defend it in our general assemblies, and we have an objective to which we try to walk to. And so far, it's done us good, because everything started in January, and 3 months after, we're still here, and the demonstration and the participation is not faltering. So we don't know if we have won yet, but I can say that the conditions that are needed for a victory are at least present. Because in the beginning, it wasn't that sure, but now we're starting to see the potential. But the potential needs to be exploited, and then we'll see this for the next week. So thank you for having us here. Of course, strike funds are important, because it's what makes us. It's not only financial support, because it's also moral support. It warms the hearts of workers when every day we receive a donation, even if from a colleague we know in France. But even when you read it out loud, we have received this amount from this country, from this country, from this country. It gives energy and morale to continue the struggle. Because in the end, of course, our main enemy is the government and the employers. But the most difficult obstacles to overcome is sometimes in your own head, to make sure that you have to continue and make the sacrifice. So everybody can take part in the fight, and not only in France, but all across the world. And of course, when you will have the same, or when you have had the same, we will of course reply. And we've always done it, including with the RMT, and we've always shown up when other comrades across the world call for help or action or solidarity. We've always turned up, not only in words but in deeds, which is the most important. So thank you, Bruno.
Would you say something for 5 minutes?
Yeah. 5 minutes.
Go for it, Andy. Go for it.
Yeah.
My name's Andy. I'm from the UK as well. Like Phil, but I'm from a very different part of the UK. And I used to be a teacher and a lawyer at one point, but now I am a full-time I work for a union full-time. I used to work for the National Union of Mine Workers, the National Education Union, and now I work for the GMB, which I found out this week actually, having been a member for a very long time. It stands for the General Municipal Boilermakers, but we don't make boilers in the UK. I know, it's pretty odd, but yeah, that's the General Workers Union in the UK, rather like TRIEF. We represent public sector and private sector, and I work in the political and legislative part of that. So I represent people in tribunal and manage the relationship with the Labour Party, which is Phil's, kind of bug at the moment. But yeah, I was going to speak a bit about kind of trade unionism in general in the UK, because we had really quite specific stuff from Phil there. But yeah, like you mentioned, kind of everyone's going on strike at the moment in the UK, because it kind of goes in waves. I think the last wave was in 2011, before that in the early 90s, and then before that in the mid-80s. It goes like on a 10 to 15 year cycle. And, like he said, the London Underground were the first to kind of start pushing against the floodgates, and then the rest of the RMT followed pretty suit across the country. Then the lawyers, the barristers, decided to strike. I don't know what you're thinking. Lawyers and barristers, wow, educated by university, they're really clever. But actually, a lot of them were on £24,000 like per year, living in London, which is it's not very much at all to get by on, particularly when you've amassed probably £50,000 in debt from university. So they went on strike, and they did something that's not very often seen in the UK. They just did a flat-out walkout. Whereas like the RMT, they'll have 2 days this week, maybe a day the week after. They just walked out for about 3 weeks straight and got a 15% pay rise. So that kind of set the tone for the rest of the movement. And everyone kind of looked at this and they thought, oh, fucking hell, if the lawyers are getting 15, let's have a go. So that kind of set the pictures in motion. I think the postal service, the communications union, followed suit. They're still kind of in dispute at the moment, but I think negotiations are going fine. They're led, again, like Nick Lynch, a white, bold man, so it's a theme. But yeah, the posties are often striking, and it's quite ironic, actually, because like Phil mentioned, in the UK, you've got to ballot by post, so you're not allowed to digitally vote. You've got to send out, your kind of voting slips and then return them. But the irony was when the education unions were choosing to ballot, the posties were on strike. So there's 2 education unions in the UK, and actually one of them didn't get the amount of ballots back that they needed to strike. Bloody postal strikes, am I right? Yeah, as a teacher, as an ex-teacher, the education strikes were very close to my heart. The union that I used to be a member of and a shop steward for, the National Education Union, they're the ones that managed to make the strike ballot, and they're fighting pretty hard, because in the UK, there's not a recruitment crisis like there is in Denmark. Actually, we get more people than we need coming in at the start. But in the UK, for the first 6 years that you're in the trade, you'll get a pay rise every single year. When you hit your 7th year, you won't get another pay rise at all, unless you go to an assistant head teacher or head of department. And those kind of promotions are few and far between. So we actually have a retention crisis. Once they've done those first 5 or 6 years, they go into HR or advertising or the vast amount of transferable skills that a teacher can do. And that's kind of what the education unions are striking over. And yeah, it's not looking good, to be honest, because they had negotiations scheduled on this Friday, just gone. I think they spent about 15 minutes in the government building and then walked out and announced that there were new strikes on. Yeah, also just very briefly, looking at the NHS, our National Health Service, the union that I work for now, GMB, we represent a lot of workers in the public sector, which includes the NHS. And the ambulance drivers, the nurses, the doctors, they've all balloted over the last month and a half to strike, and a lot of them have strike. And I think one key thing is to note with the nurses, in Scotland, we have a separate government to the rest of the UK. In Scotland and Wales, it's a devolved government. And it's run by the Scottish National Party, who are not as right-wing as the Conservatives. And there were no nurse strikes in Scotland because the Scottish government came to the table. That's all the nurses were asking for. Not even a pay rise initially, just come and have an open dialogue with us. So in Scotland, there was 0 nurses strikes, but in England, it raged on and raged on. And the negotiations are ongoing with that. But the firefighters recently settled for 12% and some improvements in terms of conditions. The RMT, one of their organisations have settled with Network Rail, which is the engineering kind of state-owned board, and they're considering a pay deal at the minute like needed with the rest of them. So that might be coming to a close soon, we'll see. But yeah, it appears that the last probably 6 to 12 months of absolute chaos in the UK is kind of slowly coming to an end. And, you know, the fire that's been burning in the UK slowly moving its way across the channel into France with you guys, and then it will start heading up north if it doesn't work to you guys. But yeah, so I promise to keep it brief, so that's all from me. But yeah, best of luck, solidarity, and vote no!
Yeah, thank you very much, all of you. Tak til alle sammen. Ja, nu har jeg lovet, at I får en lille pause. 10 minutter, og dem, der skal ryge, kan ryge, og bagefter så har vi Thomas, rådstollet for statsarbejderne, og et lille indslag først. Men vi holder en lille pause, og så håber I har masser af spørgsmål. Yeah, but I was a little afraid because and I thought it was fun.